So thank you
No,
so
no,
much.
no heavy lifting here. It was not bad at all. It was everyone was very easy to coordinate with for this event. So thank you all. Do we have all the speakers here?
Yes. Yes. Mike Klein has had a last minute conflict come up, but Shonak and I will cover.
Okay, perfect. So Mike is out. Okay. All right. Looks like folks are continuing to stroll in. We'll give another couple minutes. What time is it? So it's 2 afternoon. So 2 minutes after noon. So here in the East Coast, we'll give folks a couple more minutes to continue to join, and then we'll get started. Let me put you on mute for a little bit, and please continue to multitask for a little bit.
So just one logistic note, Daniel, you're now host. I also dropped the link to the YouTube live stream in the chat. Just so people are aware, YouTube also has a chat, and sometimes people who are watching there ask questions on the YouTube chat. So just when we get to the Q&A part, you might want to just check there to see if there's any questions and can bring those into the discussion here. And I'll probably have to drop off. If we go past the hour, I'll probably have to drop off. So just to flag that if somebody wants to keep an eye on the YouTube chat as well, sometimes we do get questions there.
Guess I need to mute the YouTube chat so we don't get the echo effect.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll sometimes, when I'm here, I'll just keep an eye on the YouTube stream, but keep it muted, and that works well.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. We have about 20 people here on this chat room for this event. Let's go ahead and kick things off. Should I record this or no, David? Does it matter?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't clear. So the great thing about the YouTube stream is it does the recording automatically. So no need to record here as well.
Oh, okay,
Once
cool.
the stream is over, it will post it as a recording.
All right, sounds good. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming together on this during this very weird time. I mean, obviously we've had traditionally been meeting here in the Washington D.C. area. Allowed people to meet with each other and network and just talk about really some of the really cool projects that we're all working on. But times are a little bit different. We had to try this virtual meeting for the first time, and hopefully this will go well and smooth enough that we'll gain some confidence to do some more in the future. We do have some SMEs who were very kind enough to share their knowledge with us. And we have folks from Accenture. We have John Hamilton here with us. He's the engineering lead for the Accenture products and platforms. And we have Sonak Roy. He is the architect and maintainer for Hyperledger Labs. And he's also with Accenture. So let me go ahead and pass on the floor to you, Jonathan or Sonak, and you guys can go ahead and present the contents.
Great. Thank you. Greetings, everyone, and thank you, Daniel, Jeff, David, for the opportunity to speak to this virtual community. And thank you all for taking time to attend this meetup. As Daniel mentioned, my name is Jonathan Hamilton. I'm an engineering lead from Accenture. I work in our software division, and I've been supporting blockchain automation framework, aka BAF, for a little over a year. And my colleague Shonak Roy is part of the blockchain practice, and he's been the lead architect from BAF since even before it was open sourced, back when it had a cooler name. Unfortunately, our third speaker, Michael Klein, like I mentioned, has an urgent conflict and won't be able to join us. But today we're very excited to introduce you to Blockchain Automation Framework, help you understand its value, and invite your collaboration to improve it further. With that said, here's the agenda we have planned. First, we will introduce you to Hyperledger Labs, for those of you that aren't aware, and its usefulness to incubate new software assets. Then I'll give an overview of what BAF is, what challenges it addresses, and how it's architected. Next, Shonak will go through the solution blueprint and a demo of one of the DLTs supported by BAF. In this case, we're going to focus on the open source version of Corda, but of course, we support many more platforms. Then we have reserved time for Q&A. And again, if you have questions, please go ahead and fire them off in the chat, and we'll try to address them as we go along. But worst case, we will reserve some time to tackle them by the end of the session. And then last but not least, we will plug how you can get involved with BAF as a user, contributor, or ideally both. So let's get into it. For those of you not familiar with Hyperledger Labs, I want to spend some time introducing it. There's actually a blog post where you can read more, and we've provided a QR code here for ease of access. But these labs are an incubation space to enable a low friction launch of software concepts. And they're not governed by the Hyperledger Technical Steering Committee, and therefore they don't go through the same level of rigor and scrutiny as a top level project, but they do provide a direct space to start open development and to grow a community. So if you take a look, you can see that there's about 40 projects in various stages, and pretty robust ecosystem. And there's BAF there. So yeah, it's it's been a great experience with the labs, and just a little more context setting. Where's the presentation? Too many windows. Again, many of you will recognize the overall Hyperledger structure. The top level projects are things at scale that have not only been approved by the TSC, have that whole rigorous governance that they bring, an overarching view of how these different components can work together. We think of the distributed ledger as being the first thing top of mind, but the greenhouse also includes tools and libraries that are modular solutions for recurring needs in the blockchain ecosystems. And you will see the labs highlighted in the ecosystem, again, where BAF exists. And from my humble perspective of limited open source and blockchain experience, I'm relatively new to contributing to both. I've really found the labs to be invaluable as a vehicle to launch an open source project and to grow a community. And I want to give a special shout out to lab stewards such as Rye Jones for all their tireless efforts. Thanks for making the labs possible. Okay, so let's start to take a look at blockchain automation framework. Again, here, a QR code, and I'll just pop the link in the chat. I won't be offended if you're multitasking during the talk, as long as it's about learning about BAF in parallel. So what problems are BAF solving? Early on in our Accenture blockchain practice, we saw that clients were eager to validate the promise of this disruptive technology through hands-on work. And we were eager to support them in that journey. In any technology, production usage is the fuel that progresses technical maturity, as well as the ecosystem and further adoption. And in the case of blockchain, this progress can't come fast enough to fulfill its promise of a more secure and efficient future. However, what we and our clients experienced was that this rush to realize quick proof of concept wins led to material technical debt. And the hubris of that technical debt really impedes the journey to production. When a POC has to be completely rewritten for pilot or production usage, then it becomes very difficult to realize the initial business case. So we saw a recurring issue that had to be addressed in order to help our clients reach production use cases and to advance the opportunity of blockchain technologies. So this recurring challenge led to Accenture investing in and open sourcing blockchain automation framework. And we like to call it a bridge to production you can trust. It implements a DLT reference architecture, which is really just a framework for describing the end-to-end needs of a production-grade DLT solution. It is designed for production-ready security, including best practices and key management. It's infrastructure independent to run on an organization's preferred provider, and also to support multi-company and multi-cloud deployments. And yet again, it's open source. So that means no commercial license lock-in, no dependency on a specific vendor. And while we do currently have maintainers from Accenture supporting the roadmap, we're really here seeking active community collaboration to accelerate the capabilities and the value that it provides. So it's an open invitation here. If you see a way to improve BAF and make it more useful for you or your organization, then please get involved. We truly want this to be an asset of the community. So as the clever name implies, and we can blame the trademark lawyers for this, Blockchain Automation Framework provides an automation framework for rapidly and consistently deploying production-ready DLT platforms. It accelerates initial implementations and provides a secure and scalable architecture for future production needs. In this very simplified BAF, declarative configuration-driven approach that you'll see in the demo here, enables the setup of a new production-grade blockchain network within hours instead of weeks. And it also allows that same network to scale over time. We currently support not only Hyperledger DLTs like Fabric, Besu, and Indy, but also Quorum and both Core to OS and Core to Enterprise. We have a number of guiding principles to steer the solutioning of BAF and its roadmap. I won't drain them all, but I will point out that it is infrastructure agnostic. Like I mentioned, you run on your choice of cloud provider, and that's a reoccurring critical theme, I think a key to success. But I do want to emphasize that this portability comes from Kubernetes. And what this means is you need to have an existing Kubernetes cluster. BAF doesn't do the provisioning of the underlying infrastructure services for you. That is out of the scope. You also call out that it was built with modular security in mind, allowing you to swap in additional technologies if required, and in providing strong protections for secrets. Okay, so to look a little more closely on the ledger technologies you can deploy with BAF, this is from our Read the Docs, so you can go there and take a look as well with more roadmap details. But our goal is to support the latest and greatest platforms, and of course, an ecosystem like blockchain that's rapidly evolving. It's difficult to keep up with. But that's our goal, and we aspire for the broadest support possible. Maintenance of older versions takes resources, as anybody who's done software maintenance knows. So eventually it's not feasible to have long-term support for every DLT version out there. And so we've made some decisions on deprecating certain versions that we're not planning to maintain. But I'd say that's an open conversation with the community. If your organization, say, really needs ND 1.9, then we welcome you to join us and maintain it so that it stays active. These are simply the priorities that we've set with our current resources, and the bigger the community, the more that can be accomplished together. And likewise, if you don't see a DLT or a feature that you need for your work, then speak up, get involved, and we can work together to get it supported. Okay, so this is I guess a very high-level view of the blockchain automation framework components. And hopefully many people will recognize here, I think one of the other principles we have is around open and well-known components. So hopefully no surprises, but just to level set to make sure there's a common understanding going into the demo. As mentioned, Kubernetes is the foundational runtime. It is a prerequisite. It gives that abstraction of the underlying infrastructure and the high availability scaling capabilities necessary for production workloads. any infrastructure, whether cloud, on-prem, just needs Kubernetes and the services listed here. Ansible is a, automated automation command line tool that helps to automate, helps admins to easily achieve system configuration, software deployment, and other complex tasks and orchestration. With BAF, the Ansible playbooks contain a series of roles and tasks to orchestrate automation of the different components of each DLT. For example, it's used to issue certificates for each node in the DLT blockchain network, and then put those certificates into the HashiCorp vault. Helm is essentially a manager of composite application packages, which are known as charts. And these charts are the instructions for deploying the necessary components, including storage and resources. And BAF uses the Helm charts for designing and configuring each DLT for its own network setup. I'll mention, a little shout out that we're moving to Helm 3 with the version 0.7, the version that's currently in development. I think that's going to help a lot. It's a big upgrade. That's coming very soon. Next, we apply a GitOps approach via Weaveworks Flux. So this allows a continuous delivery to sync Git as the system of record against the target Kubernetes cluster. And in our case, that involves passing the Git commits from the various YAML configuration files into the the target cluster again. And then last but not least, HashiCorp Vault provides a secure approach to store and gain secret information such as tokens, passwords, and certificates. BAF relies on those vaults for managing the certificates used in each node of a blockchain network during the lifecycle of deployment. And we specifically chose Vault for the portability rather than locking into nearly every cloud vendor has their own key manager software. So it helps provide that portability. So I'm going to hand it over to Shonak to introduce the solution blueprint and perform the demo, but I don't know if people have questions. Is everybody following, tracking?
Could I ask just a quick question about the previous slide?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned in there any cloud. Is it safe to presume that the framework allows you to deploy into GKE or EKS or AKS or any other sort of Kubernetes flavors that are supported directly by those cloud operators, or should we be expected to deploy K8s in sort of a more self-hosted style?
Yeah, it would support all those. We primarily in our development use EKS. I think the additional storage classes are the main piece missing if you were to go to a cloud provider we haven't yet used. Shonak, correct me if I'm wrong, we have storage classes for AWS, Azure.
Yes, so we do have, and is that I mean all our platforms are tested and actively developed on EKS. So the storage class templates of each of EKS is available. The default ones, of course, if you have any specific storage requirements, then you have to add those storage class templates. And the other we have definitely tested on Azure. But then it's not done for all the platforms. So Azure is actively tested on for Fabric, for example.
And we welcome contributions if you'd like to, take it to a different managed service and cloud provider. I don't think the storage classes are too onerous. Shonak, do you recall? It's a
yeah, we also, yeah, it's not very complex to add. Like I said, if you're using the default storage classes, and even for the non-default ones, it's just a template file you have to create, and Ansible should pick that up for depending on the cloud platform. I'll show all that there, and in our read the docs as well, we have a guide on how to add a new storage class if the storage class is not already available. Yeah, so in short, the answer is yes. It mostly works with all the managed Kubernetes platforms that's available in the market, and in our early development we also used GKE, which used to work, and then we also we have. It should work on OpenShift, but we have not. There would be some changes needed that we have not. We don't have enough resources to test that on OpenShift to allow your private cloud kind of environment.
I didn't see who asked the question. Did that help? Or do you have a follow-up question?
No, absolutely does. Thank you. I appreciate it.
David. Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Pause point.
Just one more, just a quick one. So around like GitOps and sort of Weaveworks, is there an openness towards contributions on that front that maybe take advantage of other tool sets?
Yes, definitely. I think there are some issues. There are some requirements raised, like if you are going to use, say, Argo CD or something, right? Yeah, so that would be nice as well. Yeah, because not everyone would be using GitOps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Back to that modularity theme, we've got an opinion that we've started with, but we really want the community to guide to make this most useful for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, well, if nothing else, I'll release the screen share for Shonak.
Yeah, I mean, you can go for the next one.
Oh,
That's fine.
sorry.
Because I lose the
Okay, here, I can reshare it, no problem.
share screen.
Got it right here. See it again?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, okay. So for the blueprint, again, this is for this session, we are going to talk about the Corda open source component to deploy Corda open source with BAF. So as for the blueprint, this is the generic blueprint, like all the green boxes that you see that applies to every other platform. It's just the contents of the green boxes will be different, the bright green ones. So yeah, we do have the Docker images, and for open source, we build our own Docker images for all Corda node, Notary, the network map, service, the doorman, and the Spring Boot. And then that feeds into the Ansible. So in that sense that it just needs to know what image is available. And then the actual configuration file is provided by the developer, which we'll see in short, like how the configuration file looks like. And then we have the Ansible script, which takes care of all these, playbooks, as we can say, for Ansible point of view, that like how to set up doorman, how to set up certificate, how to set up a network map, and all that. And then what the output of that Ansible are Helm instructions, and that gets committed because we are using GitOps. So all our configuration files are stored in Git. So all the Helm value files are stored in Git, and then Flux will use those value files and these Helm charts, as you see in the right extreme right box. To deploy the Kubernetes, the Helm components as per the chart. So it can have a storage class. It can have PVCs. It will definitely have some deployments or jobs and of course services. So all that is supplied by our Helm charts, the main template for Kubernetes deployment. Yeah, and there are some. We do use, from a database point of view, for example, we do use MongoDB for the network map and doorman service, and we use an H2 database for the Corda. So here again, all the ones that you see in gray, we expect open contributions from the open community. Like we have not, for example, done a high availability notary yet, and we haven't done any PostgreSQL or even cloud database integration with the Corda database, the Corda nodes basically. So that's the summary. Any questions? Or we can move for the demo.
So, just really quickly, this is Jeff. So when we talk about the databases here, so we're using the actual container implementations of the database that you guys are pulling down versus using a cloud specific
Yes.
implementation and then using the storage classes. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, yeah. So the database is a containerized database, and it uses the storage class, and you can increase the size of the storage class. Yeah, to give it appropriate, hard disk, for example. Yeah. And all our components use storage classes. So even and that's the advantage of using GitOps, is that we do treat our even our Kubernetes cluster, the whole cluster, as ephemeral. So in that sense, that if the cluster goes down, all the configurations are stored, and then once it is up, then it will come up automatically, because the Helm components or the files are already stored in Git, and all the configurations are in Git, like your namespaces and everything. Yeah. So when the pod goes down, for example, the H2 DB pod will go down, may go down, but then if it comes up, it will still find that particular PVC to start with and get the actual data from the PVC. Okay, I think now I'll have to share my screen, Jonathan.
All yours.
Yeah. Okay, so we talk about the network YAML, or the configuration file, which we will generally call network YAML. So this is our code structure, anyways, from which you can see on GitHub, and this is the network YAML that we talk about. So this configuration file is or network YAML. It is designed for each of the platforms separately. So of course, all the components may not be same for all the platforms, but the general structure is same, because that's how BAF identifies everything, all the variables that you're using. So to start with, yeah, it's like the type is Corda. For Corda, it can be Fabric, and then the version, which is the Corda version that is needed. Then we have a front end flag. This is only if we are using a supply chain application front end and all, because our open source code comes with a supply chain use case, because without a use case, it would be hard to prove that the actual network works. The blockchain network works. So that comes with a supply chain use case. So this tag is for that. It can be removed, it's optional. And then we have an environment settings, like if you are setting it for dev environment or a demo or a test, we can do that. We can provide those environment settings. We have the proxy as ambassador. We use ambassador as the main proxy to provide inter-cluster communication, or communication from any internet to the cluster. And these are, for example, if you want some extra ports to be added, by default, our ambassador exposes 8443, the SSH on the SSL protocol, and then if any additional extra ports which will be needed for Corda, for example, to the RPC calls, so that's what you can specify them. And then we have a retry count, which will explain. It's more like if our playbook waits for say the pod to come up, and that's the retry, how many times it will retry before failing. So this is here, in case a cluster is a bit slow, we can increase this retry count to enable that. And then we have an external DNS, which is, I suppose, for Kubernetes, we deploy external DNS so that we can automatically update the hosted zones with the domain names that we'll specify. Then we have the Docker section. This is used for when you're using a private repository. For a public repository, you can just use like the Hyperledger index docker.io. But for a private repository, you have to give the username password. Then we have this orderer section. I mean, ideally, we are in the process of redesigning it for this Corda specific. This orderer term comes from Fabric actually, but this is in Corda terms, it is the compatibility zone URL or the ID man, which is in the current name that they have given, or doorman in open source, and network map. So this section is common for all the other nodes except the hosting organization or the organization that is hosting the doorman and network map service, for example. So here, for other nodes to connect, they will need the address, the URI of the doorman and the network map, as well as their public certificate. So this is how we specify. And then from organization wise, we classify each participant as an organization, and for each organization we create a Kubernetes namespace. So all the resources that are owned by the organization is inside a single namespace, and if we want to check, or even if you want to delete, it's easy to delete the whole organization from Kubernetes if we need to. So yeah, so these are the organization details. I'll not like drain everything. It's all there on our GitHub as well as on the read the docs. Main components that for Corda point of view is you can specify Cordaps here, like any repository. We have a sample of our Nexus repo example, but it will work with any artifact repository. So to download the Cordap jars, because we all know that for Corda to install in Corda to install a Cordap, you have to actually restart the pod or the container after getting new Cordas. So if you want to avoid that, we can just specify them at the point of starting. So all Corda nodes will have these jars, whatever we have specified here. And then the main part comes as the services. So different Corda nodes can, organizations can support different services. So in this example, the first organization is the notary, or the, you can say for the Corda enterprise point of view, is the CNM organization. So as a result, it is supporting or hosting these three services: doorman, NMS, and notary. And then for the other organizations, they are just Corda nodes. So they are supporting just a single peer for each of them. So they are Corda nodes. But the first organization, or this is the organization which will manage the network map and the doorman. So that's why this is the first organization, and it is mandatory, because without a network map or a notary, the Corda it would not work. And then yeah, all the configurations that are generally can be, has to be changed, we can change them. Like if you want any different ports to be used, or a different subject, which is the identification for the nodes in Corda, and that can be updated. And then for example, here we have the manufacturer, and we have also used the location of that particular manufacturer. And then we can also specify any the Spring Boot, which is the Corda web server for that particular node in the same configuration file, and it will pick up. And this section is again common for everything, every organization. This is where the GitOps, you specify the GitOps files configuration, like your GitHub GitHub path and GitHub username and access tokens. And we also have to specify the vault, which is the HashiCorp vault address and the vault root token. the thing is that this file will contain a lot of secret information, and hence this should not be checked in any repo, especially public repos, of course. Okay. Any questions, or we can move forward to the demo? Yeah, so this is a pre-recorded demo, and I'll just walk through each of them, and of course it will not take 23 minutes. I'll fast forward, but to start with, just a summary is that this is a we don't have a front end as such. It's more operator based, so it's running in the CLI. So we have three CLI windows open here. We need three because when we run the Ansible playbook, that particular CLI, that's terminal will be occupied until we complete the whole playbook. And then the other are for monitoring, like if our resources are coming up correctly or not. So I'll play that, and this is the only a single playbook we have given, and this is the corda.dev YAML that we saw was the file name of the network YAML, which has been configured for this particular environment with all the values updated. So the first kind of step is it gets all the prereq software like AWS CLI, AWS Authenticator, then Helm and kubectl and all those prerequisite client software. And then it will, I'll just forward. Yeah, and then it creates the flux operators. So it's here, you can see it is waiting for the flux pods to start up. And then here the flux pod is, there are two components of flux, the main flux component and then the Helm operator. So they are starting up, and it will run or wait until all of them are running and then continue. Yeah, so that's what you can see. It's now continuing for the next step. And then next, after all these prereqs, this creating the flux is also kind of a prerequisite. It also configures Ambassador at this point, and then Ambassador will provide the inter cluster or the communication outside of the cluster. And the next point will be where we create the namespaces. Yeah, so then this is where it is starting to actually create the resources for each of the organization. So it creates namespaces, it will create the storage classes, and then it will create the vault authentications. So remember that what Ansible is actually doing is only creating those value files and checking it in with to the Git repo, and everything else, the actual deployment is done by the Flux operator and the Helm operator and Flux. Yeah, so here you can see it's waiting for the namespace supply chain NS to start up, and soon it will come up. Just forward it. Yeah, so here we have all the namespaces for each of the organization created, and then it will move forward. And as I said, like it showed like failed and all that. That message can be ignored because it is just retrying. And now here the Vault Kubernetes is doing all the authentication between Vault and Kubernetes. So all the pods in this Kubernetes cluster should be able to get the respective files from the HashiCorp Vault. Yeah, so just forwarded that. We deployed by now, maybe I'll go back a bit. Yeah, so this is where the MongoDB and the doorman and network map is starting up, and this is how it looks like when Kubernetes pods start. Or yeah, so we have, and for each of the pods when they start up, they have a lot of init containers. So the main job of the init containers is to ensure the certificate, they get the certificates from the vault. So all the network map crypto certificates and the doorman certificates are updated from in vault, and the vault, it reads from vault, and also the MongoDB ones. So the MongoDB, and then after MongoDB has started, only then the network map and the doorman will start. So we'll just move a bit forward with the rest of the stuff. So this is where the network map is already running, and then now it should we deploy the notary, we do the notary registration. So for Coda every node in Coda is two-step process. There is a registration, and then there is the Coda startup. So the registration is done as a Kubernetes job, and then the rest is just the main pod or the main service is a pod and not a job. Yeah, so as you can see here, for example, the manufacturer, each of the organization we identify as is a supply chain use case. So it's called manufacturer, carrier, and all that. So they have they have started to come up automatically because Flux has detected those changes, and it deploys the DB and the notary, and runs the registration as well. And all our jobs are kind of has a fail count of like 6. So if it fails once, it will still try for another 5 times before disappearing, and that can be configured in the charts if you want more fail times. Yeah, and as you can see, the for all the Coda nodes, they don't depend on each other to start, so they can start independently. The only dependency is the first, which is for the network map and the doorman to be available. So all the other nodes like manufacturer, carrier, even notary is starting as parallelly. They don't wait on each other.
Yeah, and Shonak, maybe I should jump in there just to make sure people are clear. We have a reference app that's also, involved here to, provide the evidence of the functionality, right? So it includes those entities for the, this manufacturer, or the warehouse, the carrier that are part of this.
So question, this is an example, but right now you have several entities here like supply chain and carrier manufacturer. Even though these are all being deployed by one entity, they could conceivably each deploy themselves and they would still all talk to each other and get along there. Okay, cool.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, that's how we have organized our network YAML, as I showed you, right? Like only the top part where the network map and the doorman, you have specified the certificates and the URI, that has to be common. But essentially, each organization should have their own network YAML only with, say, supplier will only have the supplier organization and the common part.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, and then they manage their own cluster. So ideally, this is an example, of course. So all pods are getting deployed in the same cluster, but of course, in a pure production environment, each of the organizations should have their own clusters. Yeah, and that is where the ambassador becomes very important. And most probably, we have not done all those hardening and all those of ambassador, but it uses the TLS certificates. That's why the certificates are important for anyone to register as well. But yeah, so that's when ambassador gives the inter-cluster communication between the two organizations or N organizations.
And just to follow up on that question, that also pertains to things like Vault for secrets management, et cetera.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So we do have a separate code, which is kind of inner source, which is like within Accenture. That is where we create. So that's especially for AWS only as of now. That's what we use. So it creates the whole environment for a single organization, which includes a VPC, and it has the EKS and the vault on it, and the bastion to access the vault and all that. Yeah, so each organization should have their own vault and own Kubernetes cluster, as well as your own Git repository to store the configurations.
Thank you.
Does this tool help us configure the vault, or do we have to have that already?
No, the vault is a prerequisite. Yeah, so same as the Kubernetes cluster, the vault and so vault and Kubernetes are the main prerequisites for this.
So we can set up all the organizations in the same cluster, right, for the development environment?
As well, yes, that's what is happening now. Yeah, so here in this example, it is using a single vault, and it is using a single Kubernetes cluster. It's just that in the network YAML, we have repeated the same configuration for all the 5 organizations. They can be different if you want to test on
Further,
different.
do we have to do any changes in the ambassador, like
No,
in the network?
no. The only change in the ambassador that you'll have to do is make sure that each organization ambassador URL, the suffix is different, right? So that it doesn't get confused. Because right now they have used the same suffix, say xyz.example.com, but in case of you are using different ambassadors, because each cluster will have its own ambassador, so you have to configure those suffixes with that respective cluster, say supply chain dot example.com, say warehouse.example.com, like that.
Thanks, Anna. That's great.
Yeah, so this is where it has completed, and as you see, there are so many tasks that the Ansible did, and all of them are completed. And this is the final store pod that is coming up. And if we go forward, I'll show you how it looks like on the network map. Yeah, so this is the network map. So this is part of the Corda open source. So this view, or the current Corda Enterprise CNM, doesn't have a front end. And here you can see all the pods are there. Then the notary is only one notary, and it takes the location from the certificate. So it shows the locations of each of the components. And you can also see the location here in the and each node ID is also shared here. So that's the network map. The latest Corda Enterprise, for example, will have they have a network map service, but it doesn't have a front end, but it does have a Postman or a API to access the current network map. And this is where, like, the logs of Corda is for a Corda node is shown. And here, as we said, that we can deploy Corda apps while starting the node itself. So we have, for the supply chain example, we have 2 Corda apps, so they are already loaded, and that's what it is shown in the log here. And and then this is a Lens application that we are using now to monitor. That is internal. It doesn't come with, it's like a separate third-party software. So here we are using it. We have connected it to our dev cluster, as you can see here, and then we can see what it also shows you the status of all the pods and nodes, and it also even shows the memory and all that. So this is just an example to show you that these are there, and then all the green are the number of containers that are running, and these are not green because they are jobs and they have completed. So they're actually not running right now. You can even see logs from here, from the same console, yes, and you can see how much CPU and memory. Yeah, this is just an example. It's of course it doesn't come with BAF. Yeah, and that is all actually.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
pausing
so-
for questions, but
So Jonathan, if you want to take back for
yeah,
the
let me do
last
that.
part, yeah.
Just need you to release it on Zoom.
Will you be sharing the 23-minute long recording somewhere?
I think we can do that. Yeah, we just need
Yeah,
to.
we can do that. Yeah, we can put it on YouTube. Dave, I need your help to put it on the Hyperledger channel.
Yeah, just send me the, yeah, we can talk about that offline. Just send me the
Yeah.
file and I can do it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I'm trying, in case there's any other questions, just don't want to do too many more slides, but just want to show here, this is the overview of what we did, just demonstrate with the Corda open source, and then what's targeted for roadmap. And you know, while you can see we've made progress, there's still lots of interesting work left, and each of the DLT platforms is similar. We could really use further contributions to advance the feature set. And maybe I'm a bit of a broken record, but we could really use your help. And we really want to make this, even though, you know, Shonak and I here, some others from Accenture are the face of BAF right now, that's not the future. We want the future to be community, and we would really welcome your collaboration, you know, even if it's just filing issues for features that you'd like to see, or interacting in one of our open planning meetings to provide roadmap feedback. We truly welcome that. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Jonathan, I don't have a
Yeah.
question, but just a flag, you may want to just share your screen and pull it. I dropped a link into the chat to the BAF wiki page that has more details about how to get involved. Maybe if you want to just maybe quickly go through that so people are aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got a wiki here and a lot of introductory materials and ways to get involved. We're trying to keep the funnel wide, so various things that you can do to get involved, you can all find it here. And we've got information about a quick start, you know, either as a user or as a contributor. And then highlighting good first issues here that we want to make sure to flag for everyone.
Yeah, the other thing is that mostly you'll see that our issues or the solution is not targeted on how Corda, I mean, on like create a deployment or an application for Corda. It's more about how to just set up, is solving the problem of setting up a Corda network on a production scale. So yeah, you don't need a very deep knowledge of Corda to contribute. You will more generally need a knowledge, more, I mean, just a high level knowledge of how Corda deployment works is enough. Or Fabric, for example, yeah, to contribute.
Will you be doing a
there's
similar...
oh, go ahead, Julie.
Sorry, I want to ask, I think a few of us are pretty interested in seeing a demo with Fabric.
Yeah, so there is a demo already recorded actually, and it's on the Hyperledger YouTube for the Hong Kong meetup.
Yeah, so we did the last Hong Kong meetup. We showed the demo with Fabric, and yeah, that's on YouTube in Hyperledger channel.
Can you kindly share the URL? Oh, thank you. Never mind.
Thanks, Veronica.
One other question that I have is, when it comes to different organizations or dependencies that span multiple organizations, are there best practices for working with the automation framework when dealing with those types of dependencies? For example, if I have specific organizations in Fabric and whether it's related to a channel or governance and policy around endorsements, things of that nature. Are there best practices? Is there an approach that you would take normally? Or is that done out of band and then you just set up and work with the framework accordingly?
Yeah, I think that has to be done out of, I mean, we don't direct how those things will happen. Yeah, that has to be designed. So even yeah, if you give the example of Fabric, right? Even for Corda, in the same sense, the actual Corda network design or how you will design the core components of Corda, same goes with Fabric. That has to be done out of band, right? BAF doesn't give you it says that yeah, you must have all the organizations separate, as much separate as possible, and the database and separate, and the vault separate. But yeah, at the end of the day, it ends up with how you design the network, the DLT network for that particular use case. Yeah, so if you can have multiple channels, for example, in Fabric sample, right, and that's possible. That is very, very easily configurable from BAF. And as you can, if you see our Rocket chat, we do have all those going on, and the issues list as well. All of this, we just completed that, I think, last sprint. So you can deploy multiple channels on the existing Fabric, on the Fabric network that you are creating, you have created using BAF.
Thanks. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And even like deploying similar to core dabs, you can deploy chain codes by defining that through the same network YAML file and all that configurations. And actually Fabric that's the most complicated of all the platforms that we are supporting, and that's why the Fabric network YAML is very complicated, because it is as simple, I mean, is how the network does, right? So yeah, it has a chain code, for example, section where you define the chain code, and you can give the endorsements and all that in that. But of course, it does assume that you have already defined the chain code and wrote the chain code and tested it before actually trying to deploy it across organizations.
Thank you, sir.
Does BAMF enforce best practices like separating CouchDB in separate pods and enforcing multiple replica sets? Stuff like that makes it more resilient. Or is that all configured in the
Yeah,
YAML?
so right now it is from Corda point of view, I mean, Corda itself, it doesn't support horizontal scaling, right? So yeah, the usage of from design point of view, as we discussed earlier, that we have kept every database, for example, containerized. So they are separate. So it's a very microservice architecture. Even if you see our whole supply chain application point of view as well, we have the Express API. So we have the Corda web server, or for Fabric counterpart, the Fabric REST server, and then we have a separate Express API, and then we have a separate front end. And the magic of the Express API is that the front end of the supply chain is same, and it can work with the Express API. Via the Express API, it can work with a Fabric backend or a Corda backend or even a Quorum backend now. So those architecture principles are there in our code base, and yeah, so it should be a very good example if you are starting on your Kubernetes journey as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the other question is for Quorum one, that example. We don't have a meetup video or a more detailed video on Quorum, but yeah, we do have our PI demo. That's what has been posted here for how we set up a Quorum network.
Just quickly, is there anywhere where BAF is being used in production right now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can't share specific client names.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Just good to know.
Yeah, so BAF has been used, I mean, more than once. It's not just once. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, sorry. There was another question.
Oh, just roughly how large is the current community? And
We have less than 10 maintainers and over 5 production usages. So I'll give you a general size.
Yeah, so the community, I mean, that was the main goal of our meetup when we present is to get more collaborations rather than usage actually. Yeah, so we need to
Usage is
grow
good
that
too.
community.
Yes, we want both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're out of time. I know everybody's probably got their next Zoom call right around the corner. So I know I do. So thank you for joining and learning more. And again, yeah, we welcome your involvement and as a user or contributor, and perhaps both.
Yeah, thanks everybody. This is very informative.
Yeah, thank you guys for your presentation. It was very very helpful and educational. We typically do our events once a quarter, so every 3 months. But sometimes we do every other month, depending on if we have additional topics for presentation. So always looking for interesting topics to share, knowledge to share with others. So please, if you have any interesting topics, please bring it forward to me or Jeff here on this channel as well. We'll hopefully see you again soon. And John, did you want to make that announcement? I think I saw something about forum recording. Did you need some help with that or?
Yeah, some help would be great. Sounds like Naveen might be volunteering. Won't make him sign a contract or anything, or DCO just yet, but
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice, Naveen. And the other one is that we are presenting BAF, the Corda Enterprise part on our CordaCon, not our CordaCon, on CordaCon next week on October 22nd.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all. Appreciate it. We're a few minutes over now, and we'll go and wrap it up then.
Thanks, everyone.
yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, all.